Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'll be giving you guys my top 5 secrets to never die in Age of Empires 2. So obviously the opponent wants to kill us in game and he will try to pressure us and attack us at every point, but there are a few tips and tricks that you can implement to not take as much damage as you normally would. Here are my top 5 tips to do just that. Starting off at number 5, this is a tip in Feudal Age to basically never die to any Feudal Age aggression. If you're walled with palisade walls and your opponent is trying to break in with scouts and archers, you have basically just two options. Either you try to wall behind with houses or something else, or you just try to fight his army. If you cannot fight his army and you have to wall behind, if you use houses and palisade walls, his archers can actually range your villagers because the villagers are not far enough away to where they can rewall safely. However, because the archer has 4+1 range if they have fletching, you can actually do a really cool trick to always re-wall behind without putting your villager in harm's way. And the way to do this is to make a market as part of your re-wall. So if the opponent is attacking a palisade wall, all you have to do is build a market right next to the palisade wall and the villager is building it at the very back, so it's not in range of the archers. If you do this, your opponent cannot range under any circumstance your villager building it and you'll get the market up in time. The cool thing is you can just build the market until it has like 300 or 400 HP, and then once your opponent just leaves or goes somewhere else and you buy enough time, you can then delete the market to only spend like 25 or 30 wood on it and you get all the wood back because you didn't finish the building of the market. This is a really good and cheap and effective way to keep your opponent's army out in Feudal Age while having very little investment from your end. Moving on to number 4, the next tip to not die on defense is to have an active defense and not a static defense. Take this situation, for example, your opponent is pushing you in Castle Age or even in Feudal Age and you have a little bit of army but you're stuck inside your base. Your army inside your base in this situation is doing absolutely nothing. Your opponent can roam around your base, hit over wood lines, you can do all kinds of things. You could even start siege pushing you, maybe launch a forward castle. What you should instead be doing is keeping your army outside of your walls and hitting and running wherever possible. I mean, this is a case-by-case situation. So for example, if your opponent has melee units and you have range units, okay, sitting behind your walls and pushing him off with range units is completely fine. But if he's got some range units and you've got range units, you can then go outside your walls, look to take a couple good fights or at least pick off some reinforcements, and then just run away and buy yourself some time. This keeps your opponent away from your villagers and also makes him think twice about attacking you because now he's got something to lose. If you just sit your army at home, let him set up his siege push, let him set up his forward castle, let him do whatever he wants outside your base, you're never going to succeed on defense. Another nice trick I like, and it's very similar to this point, is when you have cavalry units that are very mobile and your opponent is running pretty immobile units across the map to attack you like crossbows or pikes, you can actually use your knights or your light cav to pick off his reinforcements and kill them before they even join the fight. 10 knights can easily pick off 1 or 2 pikemen as they're running to join the fight, and this way you can damage your opponent's army without actually taking a head-on fight. After you've cut off reinforcements for a few minutes, you can then be in a better position to take on the fight and clear him up once and for all. This active defense is absolutely essential to not just be a sitting duck and waiting to die from your opponent's pressure. Moving on to number 3, it's important to have vision control. What we see is very hard to die to because you see it coming, you're able to prepare a counter, and you're going to be ready to defend depending on what's coming your way. But if you don't see it, then it's going to be very hard to defend it. Imagine there's crossbows on your wood line, you don't see it, you're not going to pull back your villas because you're not there in time. But if you have an outpost on that wood line or a tower and you see the opponent's army coming, you can easily pull back your villas and lose 0 units, 0 villagers. So vision control is key, and the best way to do that is to pick up Town Watch. I highly recommend you pick up Town Watch in Castle Age onwards at any point in the game. It's a very cheap and effective upgrade. And then after Town Watch is in, feel free to sprinkle out some outposts around your base and even in the middle of the map with just 1 or 2 villagers, not a big investment. And getting all that vision down will save you a lot of damage and will keep you very safe and let you react to what your opponent is doing. Imagine the situation where you're basically playing on all visible. You see everything your opponent's going for. You're not going to get surprised. Is it hard to take damage in this situation? Absolutely. You're not going to take basically any surprises. You're not going to get, pushed. If your guy goes for a forward castle, you see it coming a mile away, you can actually stop him. So this vision control can be potentially like overpowered in your benefit if you do it well. Super broken. The outposts are pretty cheap as well. So I highly recommend you make use of vision control when playing defense. And actually, the contrary is true as well. Vision control is great on offense, but this is a defense video, so we'll focus on that for now. Moving on to number 2, I have a really nice tip to help you on defense when you're unsure of how much you need to invest into your army. The way I like to do it is to match opponent's investment. If your opponent is going for a siege workshop forward alongside his army, you make army and you make a defensive siege workshop to match what he goes for. If he goes for monasteries, 2 monasteries forward, that is 350 wood, you can easily justify making a stable and making 3 light cav. It's very similar in resources and is a counter to the monks. Similarly, if your opponent picks up ballistics and he's going like, let's say, crossbows and ballistics, this is a good time for you to go into elite skirmisher and get +2 defense on the skirms to help deal with the archers. So you're still going for counter units if you want to, but you're matching the investment that he's going for in terms of resources. This helps keep you competitive and enables you to implement the active defense and the fighting enemy instead of sitting in our base strategy that we talked about earlier. Obviously, you have to keep in mind that if you're defending, chances are you have better economy since your opponent is wanting to push you, therefore potentially not adding any town centers. So if you find yourself in a position where you already added your town centers and you cannot match the opponent's army, then at least recognize that situation and try not to take big fights, because you recognize that you simply cannot match his investment and therefore are likely to lose the fight. In that case, it's better to buy time, use some of the active defense we talked about, pick off reinforcements, and just try to stall until your economy can pick up and get you ahead to where you have more villagers and enough army to defend. That is the ideal goal in that scenario. Before we talk about number 1, I have an honorable mention that's super important to just know in general. It's a concept that will help you so much in pretty much every game you play, and that is your 3 win cons on defense. A lot of times you see me playing pro games and tournaments and you say, oh, Hera won without even attacking his opponent. How is that possible? Why did the enemy resign? Well, there's a few reasons why the enemy could resign even though you don't attack his base. Your 3 win cons on defense is number 1, getting ahead in economy. If your opponent is pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, but they don't kill villagers, they're just like in your base kind of hitting farms or hitting walls, and you get to a 50 villager lead, the game will be completely over because your 50 villagers will gather so many extra resources and you can easily steamroll your opponent's army within a few minutes. The second win con is to clean up the push by, matching the opponent's investment, taking a good fight using defender's advantage, which means you have closer reinforcements, which means more units. So winning a fight to clear the push can set up a nice counter push. And then the third win con on defense, and something we didn't talk about, is simply counter attacking. If your opponent is attacking us, but he's not doing a whole lot, he's just kind of sitting outside our walls, we don't have to fight him. We can easily send our army to counterattack, and a lot of the times our opponent would be wide open and not expecting us to counterattack because, especially at lower levels, they thought that they were the ones doing the attacking and they didn't consider the possibility of a counterattack going to their base. So keep these 3 win cons in mind when you're playing defense, because just because you're on defense, it does not mean you're losing. This actually reminds me of a very, very funny moment where I was defending Leary's fast dip monk push on Arena, and I went back to watch the VOD and some guy in the chat was saying, what the hell is Hera doing? He's just sitting there and he's dying. Meanwhile, I had a 40 vill lead, and then as soon as I got to Imperial Age, I cleared up Leary's monk push, and then Leary resigned on the spot because I had a bigger vill lead, and it was actually a great game. And the guy in chat was like, wow, what a throw from Leary. Even though I was winning the entire time, and it was up to Leary to actually win with this push, and it was close, but he just couldn't manage it. So it's funny that the viewer thought just because I was on defense, it means I was getting destroyed, but there was a lot more going on in the background, of course. Alright, with that funny story out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about number 1, which is probably the most important thing I can ever tell you guys when it comes to secrets on defense. This is a concept that the Viper knows very well, and if you watch his games, you can easily spot him doing this, even though he'll never admit to it because we know his secrets just from watching here. But the idea is to push back before Imperial Age and you place a good castle. This is so crucial. There's so many times where you're getting pushed and it's in Castle Age, you're getting heavily pushed, you have no space, and then you make a castle that's like in your base and it's not on a hill, it's just like in your base just trying to survive. Then you go imp, an opponent has a castle on the hill. Even if you get faster and you start trebbing him, your opponent just has that hill permanently, and it leaves you in such an awkward position. You're out of space, you're pushing uphill, and your opponent has full map control, and it's a really awkward position to be in. So instead, what's really good tactic to use is to mass a lot of army. Instead of clicking Imperial Age, look to push back your opponent and then drop the castle on the main hill. Even if you have a slower imp in this situation, because you invested into army, you will have the hill position, you will regain some ground, and you can push back a little bit with your military and put some pressure on your opponent. This is a really important tactic to know when you're going into those fast imp wars. If your opponent fast imp and you fast imp and he has the hill, you lose. So don't do that. Push back first. Don't let him get the castle on the hill. Don't put your castle on flat ground if you don't have to, and you can easily clean his push and then drop a good castle. And even if you're slower up to Imperial Age, you should still be in a better position with better economy, more military, and better map control. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if these secrets helped you survive longer in your AoE2 games and potentially push back and take the wins on defense. I feel like I have a really solid defense these days, and I hope these tips can help you guys out and help you match my level of defense. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.